Hi everyone, welcome to another edition of Data Tech Talk. Today in the Tech Founder series, we have an amazing CTO and co-founder of Sensolus with us, and his name is Johan Criel. Johan, so lovely to meet you, and thank you for joining us today.
Same for you. Thank you for inviting me, Shama.
Amazing. So I know that by background, you did quite a lot of work in different industries, but also you came into the supply chain industry as a co-founder. So tell us a little bit about how Sensolus was formed. How did you meet your co-founders? So just your journey, basically.
Okay. No, so my background is in the telecom industry. So I worked on on IoT for I think 10 years. And we were mostly focusing on IoT platforms, which was really interesting. But one of the problems, it was with the early days, and when you have to explain what you do, then mostly it was like, well, you can do everything. And then the second question is, but what can you really do for the industry? Everything, and it really scales well. So, but one of the ideas was like, how can we really prove something to make value and give benefits to customers with this IoT technology? And in that way, we saw a trend coming up of low power communication over Sigfox at that point. And we said, okay, we want to go into the optimize the supply chain and the logistic processes and streamline them by connecting all the assets or the non-powered assets that are there. And at that point, we started Sensolus. So it's 6 years ago. We really provided an end-to-end application, and so we started up Sensolus.
Amazing. And how did you meet your co-founders?
Well, one person I met in Alcatel-Lucent, so we were working there for Bell Labs, and we were working together. Then we had some old friends, and we had some. We were all in a nice position in bigger companies, but we really, there was a vibe to really go and to jump and to start our own business and to see how far we can get in that direction. And so that's how we started.
Awesome. No, that sounds really cool. So I was curious in the supply chain industry, the traditional supply chain industry does not depend a lot on IoT and tracking assets via IoT. So I would love to know for Sensolus, what are the kind of use cases you see, not just asset management, but maybe you see other use cases as well. How the industry is using Sensolus and what kind of customers do you cater to as well?
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe first what we exactly do. So we're active indeed in the supply chain and logistic, but we're really focusing on non-powered assets. So there are assets without a battery. For example, could be returnable transport packaging, could be boxes, containers, and so on. And there's one thing in common with all those assets, and that's is that almost nobody knows where they are and how much they are used. And there are really a huge number of them. So when in a process, suddenly there's a blocked process. So nobody knows, due to, for example, an asset that is missing, nobody knows where to find it. And so this causes delays, for example, in processes. There's lost in results and time lost searching processes. You have SLAs that are kicking in, and it's in that direction that we provide our solution. So the end-to-end solution exists a part of hardware. So this is actually a tracker, and we call it as simple as a sticker. You glue it on the asset, and the next 5 to 10 years, you know exactly where the asset is. And so all those assets, having the location and how much they are utilized or some conditions around it, this is all small data. But when all this data comes together in the cloud and we can mix it up with other process information, it really becomes big data. And from that way, we always see the companies evolving from first connecting their assets to the internet to get some basic information, to really go then to having visibility on all the assets. Where are they? How much are they used? Really going to optimizations, for example, the flows. Just say like one of our customers, Airbus, that is optimizing the flows of all the parts of their airplanes during the manufacturing process. Then we also, they go to compliance. Or our subcontractors really meeting all the needs in these flows. Does not and so on, or do not breach the SLAs. And actually, at the end, we also see now companies popping up, really having new business model. For example, you can have a pay-per-use model that you open up when you really know exactly how much these assets are used. And those are the phases that we see that most companies go through, and that we really help them with to go into the process and really accelerate the time to value with those assets and not have sleeping assets anymore on the balance.
Yeah, and I'm very curious because in the supply chain industry, I've also seen people using blockchain technology to track assets as well. Is this something that you are also looking into?
Well, mostly we partner up there with blockchain providers. So there's one side you have, how do we acquire data? So, and this has had to do with the sensors, but also the analysts. So we have a lot of edge analysis on it. And then at that point, when the data is recorded, then indeed it can go into the blockchain, and there we store it. And so for that, we have plugins, and we work together with some partners to get this in the blockchain. So this is, the first part is indeed the gathering the data, then it's the consuming the data. But often we see it in this IoT world that you cannot purely split these two worlds. And we're really working with, for example, low power. So there are two mantras that we have just to make sure that you meet the battery life you need. It's like that the device should always sleep except when there's direct business value for the customer. But this means that you really need to have strong edge analytics on your device to exactly calculate what you need and only send this data to the cloud. And then at that part, it's then consumed by the other application, or for example, stored in blockchain.
Yeah, for those of you in the audience who are not aware of edge analytics, could you maybe explain a little bit in one or two sentences what edge analytics means?
Well, it means that you will not calculate everything in the cloud. So just say when you have a traditional non-low power application, we just would say like we plug in a sort of sensor and we communicate and send everything to the cloud. So actually, and then in the cloud, you will do the analysis on that data. The problem is that sending all that data to the cloud is really expensive from an energetical point of view. And what we do is we do not do the analysis on the cloud, but we do the analysis on the device itself. Could be, for example, operating hours, could be anomalies that we are detecting. And only when this anomaly is detected, we will send it to the cloud. But since we're working in a lot of different use cases, going from industrial manufacturing, transport, waste management, we really need to configure this logic from remotely to make sure that it works in all use cases. And so we tune this analysis on the edge based on the use cases and only send the relevant data to the cloud. So that's where this, the edge is really important.
Awesome. No, that sounds great. The other question that I also had was related to the actual data that has been collected. So, for example, a lot of the founders who are starting off on big data analytics related components, they are trying to figure out still like what is the data that I capture, what kind of data sets are relevant for the business. When you started off, when you and your team started off, did you already know what kind of data that you needed to capture based on some prior research, or was it something that you developed on the go?
Well, we had a lot of thoughts and a lot of questions from customer, and the first thing where we started with is location. And it can seem pretty simple because when you have your mobile, you say, okay, you have your, just put your GPS on and you know where you are at any time. But also when you look to your mobile, when you put your GPS up after one day, if not one day, it's the battery is empty. So how can we realize to have a solution that captures location but lasts for 5 to 10 years? So that was a question. The reason also why this is so important is that we are not talking here about 10 assets or 100 assets. We often connect thousands of assets. So when you have to replace the batteries, or for example, just say containers in the field, it's horribly expensive. So the operational cost will just be too high. So therefore, we started with locations with this really specificity that we're really best in class in this low power asset tracking. So nobody can have that long batteries with a tracking device as our device, and that's the way how we started. And then we got other questions that came along. For example, yeah, we have utilizations, and we have, I think it is for some companies, we have 10 to 15% of the assets that are just sleeping assets. And it's not that they are stolen, they're just they're just lost. It could be, for example, on airports, we have companies, our customers that are tracking tow bars there, and they have 15% of the tow bars are lost a year in 1 year. It's not that there's nobody steals this tow bars, but it's just like they have so many assets and they don't know where it is. So this is really a clear point where we start. And so the activity says how long it's used. And then after we went extending, for example, to operating hours, how long is something really used. And then we have now condition monitoring going from the traditionals like, okay, we also need to have the temperature, for example, when something is shipped, and the humidity, but could also be we want to know if a box is loaded, yes or no. In a container, we want to know if somebody is inside. So the problematic that we have here in, for example, in Europe. But we extend based on the customer, but we really started with this one focus, location and activity, and then later expand, because you cannot do everything at the same time. And this is also maybe in Port Leicester, it's like, for sure, because we are working on hardware, and the fact that of developing hardware is something totally different as developing software. So why you can do short iterations in software, in hardware iterations are long. So just to bring a product to the market, it takes at least 1 year when you really are going fast. So and you have to decide also 1 year on beforehand. So changes in hardware are really expensive. So you have really to think it much more in advance than on software. So really taking something core in the niche and then going out. That's how we deal with it.
Yeah, no, that's really, really interesting. But another interesting thing that I know of is Sensolus actually recently got funded with a 3.5 million round. It's very recent. It's in October, if I'm not mistaken. Could you explain a little bit who were the investors and what's next for you in terms of funding as well, or future funding?
Yeah, so we had before Series A. Now it was a Series B that we have. So we have a German investor, BTOV, that entered the company and that works along now with our story. And the deal is still now. We ended up to 100K connected devices. So there are quite a lot of devices, and now it's just like we want to grow faster. So we have proven that there is a real problem. So when I see the customers and they have the solution in place, they say, it's a total different world, and we want to replicate this now to more of those customers, also slightly extend the industries. So mostly of the part goes in sales and marketing, and then also for the product line, we're going to extend to different type of assets. And the reason is a bit how I explain asset tracking. Often it's like you can see it as a sort of pyramid. And when in the top of the pyramid, you have the trucks. And all trucks are connected. So you cannot imagine anymore a world of trucks that are not connected to the internet, because you need to know the ETA, you need to know where they are. And just below you have for example, the trailers. And so trailers are getting connected. We have a lot of things there in the transport. And then just below you have the more expensive carriers, like for transporting parts of a plane, but also in the automotive, we are active on that direction. But then when you go still lower in the triangle, you go really to the pallets and everything. And how can we connect all those assets to the internet? And the technology is not yet on the lowest level to really say we connect everything, but we're going down, and also we're extending our portfolio to also address those assets, because we have customers where we already connect a lot of different types of assets, but they say, oh, but when would it possible to also connect those other assets, because these are also invisible to us. So we're going down into that pyramid, and that's also part of the money is also invested in for that purpose.
Sounds great. And do you have plans of expanding beyond Europe at the moment?
Well, currently we're already outside Europe, but mostly we do that with partners. So our main focus stays Europe, but there are trajectories in the other continents. So
Sounds amazing.
mhm.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Johan. I just want to go back slightly a little bit and kind of generalize as a part of the question. How do you see in the IoT landscape, how do you see things evolving? So the Internet of Things, the concept of Internet of Things has been around for quite a few years now. And, there are many different kinds of startups and companies that are using Internet of Things not only to do asset tracking, but also other kinds of household items, coordination and things like that. How do you see in the industry this landscape of IoT devices shifting? And what about now and what about in the future?
I know, good question. So indeed, like I told, like how we started, we had a lot of things where we had Internet of Things, and you connect everything to the internet. And I think it was like at that moment, uh, just the pure technical driven proposition that we had, like, okay, just connect everything. But we didn't thought enough from really the benefit point of view. So everybody was thinking, but I think at the moment in the company, I said, okay, we will not talk anymore regarding Internet of Things on sich, because Internet of Things, it's everywhere in a part of industry for solving a dedicated problem. So our customers, they don't worry if it's Internet of Things or something else. They just want to know where their assets are and how they're used and how they're optimizing their process flows. So what you see is that even if it's an asset or whatever, you see that more and more there are niches where they really come on. And you also see that, for example, the IoT platform providers are also players are also looking or start acquiring like more vertical partners to say, okay, we really want to prove on that domain what you do there. So because we also had customers that say, okay, we will make it. So on the question, like, is it a make or buy decision? I think in the early days, I think even 3 or 4 years ago, we saw that the make or buy was often a make. But then we saw popping up also like, we see this changing now. We also saw companies that in the beginning tried to make and say, okay, we just have a platform and then we can connect everything, and they think so broad that you don't talk anymore, that it's difficult to put the benefit on it and to overlook it. So when you want to go then from this horizontal platform to really something that's worthwhile and of providing solutions for your problem, then it's still miles away. It takes a long time. And in that point now, more and more, you see that there are, for example, this niche application that come on the market where you have direct, it's plug and play. And they really think to the end to end. So that this is also something I saw as a second point, is that when you cannot fully cut hardware and the device and the edge from the cloud.
Yeah.
So you should combine it. It's really an interplay between the two of them. So it's just like at the moment in time when we had the IoT platforms or developed them before, we had a lot how you can connect it, what you can do on top of it, but nobody was thinking like, how can we install those things on an easy way, and how can we manage those things? So we had the device management in general, but not like, how do we do it and do this in the field? And bringing those things together, I think we will still see this going further in the next years.
Sounds awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Johan, for your presence today and this amazing conversation as well. Our time, unfortunately, is coming to an end. But for those of the people in the audience who would love to reach out to you, what is the best way to connect with you?
The best way is just to email me, or you find me on LinkedIn.
Awesome.
Just chat me and we'll get connected.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you again,
For the
audience,
invitation.
for listening to us as well, and thank you, Johan, again, as well as. So what we will do next is we will invite many more technology founders. But if you have a technology founder in mind who you would love to, see on the show and learn from the founder as well, please comment below, tag him or her, and let us know as well. So thank you once again. Until next time. Bye.
Okay, bye bye.